Okay, it is tire replacement time, especially before I go for a ride. I've got exactly 12,980 miles on this tire. As you can see, I could go a little farther. It's not quite bald in the middle. I got good life out of it, I'd say. But going to replace it. I've got my Yokohama S drive over there. So here's the steps based on what I've been studying. First, we will unhook the swing arm position sensor. Then I'm going to jack up the bike and relieve the, not completely off the ground, and relieve some pressure on the shock and take out the shock bolt. You can't quite see it. All right, I'm going to lift it just enough to take the pressure off the bolt, so I should be able to slide the bolt out. Then I'm going to jack it up, let the swing arm come down, and work the belt off. I'm not going to touch the adjusters. Then we have to pull off the axle. So I will document what steps I can. Anyway, that's what we're doing today. By the way, when I'm done with that, then we're going to take the drive pulley off and remove the hub, because I'm going to take it to a car place, see if they'll put the tire on. My understanding is the hub has to be removed to get it on their equipment. All right, so we're going to do that. Okay, so that's disconnected. Pardon the shaky cam. I have to tell you what a bear. This is not a nut back here. It's some kind of captured nut in this bracket, but it doesn't have a hex on it. I had to grab it back there with a pair of vice grips because it was spinning in the bracket. Not sure why, but as always, things are fiddly. Anyway, put the bolt back in just for safekeeping. So the sensor's now disconnected. So when we jack the bike up, we don't screw that up. I'm telling you right now, if you don't unhook this and you mess up that position sensor, you will be visiting the dealer for a buds recalibration. Okay, bolt out. Now what I did is I raised the jack till the tire was off the ground, then slowly let the jack down until it relieved the pressure on this bolt. And then the bolt just slid right out, okay? So it's a matter of finding that sweet spot. You can see the shock's loose. By the way, my smooth Spyder came off. Give me a chance to clean it up, because that's held on with the bolt and nut. This is Jim's newer model smooth Spyder that doesn't require you drilling holes in the frames, and I've been very happy with it. Anyway, shock off. Now the next thing, we will be jacking up the bike, taking the cotter pin out of the axle bolt. Then just so you know, you need a 36 mil wrench. This wrench cost me 17 bucks on eBay. Yeah, I don't have it off the top of my head. I think it was Summit Racing. I bought it on eBay for 17 bucks. I couldn't believe it. I bought it yesterday and it arrived, pardon me, today. I also, for the hell of it, bought this 36 millimeter socket. That was like 10 bucks. Same vendor, so they shipped both of them one day from Nevada. I'm probably going to cut this in half like the Aussie guy does, so I have you know, 2 wrenches, but that's why I bought the socket, because I didn't know that I'd be able to cut that with a hand hacksaw. It's all I got. So anyway, we will be proceeding. By the way, I was easily able to walk the belt off the pulley by simply rotating the tire backwards and pulling a little on the belt, and it came right off, no issues. Haven't even touched the axle yet or any adjusters. So now we'll remove the axle. By the way, just for the heck of it, I went ahead and removed the ABS sensor, one bolt in the brackets and some shims. Remember how it goes back together, but I didn't want to jack it up. It also gave me more throw on the 13 mil bolt here to remove the brake caliper. I've got the front one to do. Now, some have said when you drop this, a shim will drop out. Don't know if I have that, but I've removed the back one. I don't think there's a shim in there, but I'm going to be real careful when I start to loosen that front one and move the brake caliper around, see if I see a shim drop out of there. If I don't, and then I see a shim drop out of the front, I know where it came from. I'll let you know if I have the shim. Okay, I had no shim holding my brake caliper on at all. I've got it hung by the muffler with a bungee cord just to take the stress off the brake cable, because I'm going to be jacking this up more. Now it's time to take the cotter pin out, take the nut off, pull the axle, and get the wheel out. But again, I'll be jacking it up more to get the clearance out from behind the fender. So let's go ahead and do that. And tire is out. By the way, to get the axle out, I had to set the jack back down till there was some light pressure on the tire. Then the axle pulled right out. with the weight, no weight on the tire. The tire was too much weight for, at least for me, to slide that axle out. So I dropped a little bit, so there was a little bit of weight on the tire, pulled it right out. Now it's time to take the drive hub off, which just pulls off, and then remove the inner hub and take it on down, get the tire replaced. We'll see how that goes. Okay, hub removed, fairly straightforward. A lot of yellow Loctite, so we'll be reusing yellow Loctite. Tires in the back with the hub removed, ready to go to the dealer. So that pulled off. It was hard to get started pulling off, but it's just held in by those rubber dampers. To make sure I got them in the right order, I numbered them and marked the hub or the rim. I'm not sure it matters what order they go in. It for sure matters the direction they go in. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure they go in the right same way they came off. So I marked them, marked the orientation of the drive pulley to the rim, also marked the orientation of the hub to the rim. I put a little tick on the hub, put one on the rim in a spot where hopefully the guy putting the tire on won't wipe it off, and that way everything's indexed the way it came off. So just some tips there. And the waiting game. Took it to the car, took it to Allen Tire. No questions asked, mainly because I removed the hub. They're gonna do it, but I went at lunchtime. Guys out to lunch, so it's gonna be 45 minutes. In the meantime, I thought I'd look at some stuff. Brake pads look good to me. And this is with 12,900 miles, so almost 1,300. One's worn a little more than the other, but they look good. I didn't measure them per the spec. I may just go ahead and do that. But, you know, for you snowbound folks, gorgeous day here in Southern California. You can't see our mountains, but they're all snow-capped. And it's 80 degrees. So I actually worked up a sweat doing this. Anyway, so waiting for the tire, and soon we will put it back together. I have to tell you, this was not a hard job at all. As long as you got the right jack and you load and unload the tire as you're doing stuff, it was pretty damn easy. Let's see how it is going back on, and whether my belt adjustment holds. Hoping I don't have to do that because it was perfect before I took the tire off, but we'll see. Okay, it's just some tips on reassembly. Is use the axle to align when you're putting the hub back on. That's this. Use the axle to align the tube, the spacer tube that's in there. You'll notice when you put it in, it can float around. Now, to be honest, I don't know once we torque up those bolts, whether that tube will still float around in there or not. Maybe it will, but I didn't want to take that chance. It's supposed to capture the inner races of the bearings and on each side. That's the idea behind it. So I just used the axle to align that tube, and then I snugged up the bolts. Now, a tip here, I always tell people this, but I'm going to reiterate. You never tighten things in a circle. Use a star pattern. Tighten, snug, 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 snug. And then tighten, 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 so on and so forth. Then torque, 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 you know, so on and so forth. So just remember to do that. Don't go around in a circle. You don't want to warp anything. That's the whole idea. All right, my seals and everything look good. My bearings looked great, so clean as a whistle too, which was amazing. So everything's looking good. I'm gonna rub a little bit of grease on this seal before putting on the drive sprocket. All right, but first got to torque up those bolts. I've got them snugged right now. All right, anyway, if I find any more tips as I go, I'll be back to tell you. Okay, tires back together. There's a few tips. One, for those that don't have a service manual, the bolts that hold the hub on, torque to 35 pounds per square inch, whatever it is. Then, to seat this hub back on, first off, taking mine off, I had to pull and pull and pull and go around in a circle. It was very tight. There's tangs that go into the rubbers that were in there. What I did to put it back on was I put some white lithium grease on the tangs that go between the rubbers, and that helped it go on a lot easier. I tried to force it on or press it on without it and wound up taking it off, cleaning that all up in there, and then the white lithium. The reason white lithium is it doesn't eat rubber. It's the whole idea behind white lithium. So I used that just to lube it a little to get it to go down because I was having a hard time getting it to... I stood on the thing and still couldn't get it to go down in those rubbers. The grease helped. So just a tip for me. Okay, tire is on. Everything's back together. Now, as I said, these adjusters are fiddly. The way they work is this end cap and that Allen screw is what pulls back the block that moves in and out of the frame. So as you're tightening that axle, that block can slide back. The way I checked everything was I pushed the tire, I snugged down the thing and I pushed the tire. And if I could wiggle these caps in the frame, it means that tension bolt is not pulling on the bracket. So same thing on this side. So it was a little fiddly. As I tightened up the nut, I reached over and click, 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 click. I'm like, okay, that ain't working. So what I did is I pushed in on the tire. Then while pushing in on the tire, I reached over and dropped the floor jack. Now with the shock out, the forks were down pretty far. And as you lower it, what happens is the force of the bike coming down pushes the tire, believe it or not, forward. And that tightened up these end caps. Then I went ahead and tightened up the axle, then jacked it back up and tightened the axle to spec, checking that these caps did not wiggle. Now my drive belt did change a slight amount. It actually moved away from the flange a little bit, but understand what the spec is. It's 1 millimeter to 5 millimeters or 3/16 of an inch. So while I've got millimeters here, I'm actually well in that. I'm at 2/16 of an inch on the gap. So I'm basically right in the middle. So perfect. But again, I was a little closer before. Not much, but a little bit closer. So it did affect my drive belt alignment, not tension, mind you, alignment. As long as these caps are tight up against this frame, shouldn't affect tension. If your caps are loose and wobbly, that means that the axle came back on you, because there is, you know, the blocks slide in here, and these end caps, you can literally loosen this axle and pull the whole, you know, to the end caps are sticking way out here. So the idea is you want to drive that axle forward, pulling that end cap tight onto the frame on both sides. Make sure that the cap doesn't wiggle. If it does, again, it means that that screw is not doing anything. You basically captured the blocks with the nut and the axle in the frame at a different position than that they were. You want those caps tight up against that frame, okay? Hope that helps someone who's done this, but it does affect your drive belt if you don't get those back in right and get that axle tightened down. It's a little fidgety, guys, don't get me wrong. I loosened the axle twice to get that clicking out of the caps, knowing that it had changed. I wanted those caps tight up against that frame. So again, drove the tire forward. Actually, when I put the wrench on, I also tapped on the wrench to drive the axle forward on both sides, make sure the caps, and I dropped the jack. Now, when I say I dropped the jack, I didn't drop it a huge amount. I dropped it just enough so that tire sat on the ground and started to try to roll, thus pushing the axle forward. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, I'm good to go. I haven't gone for a ride yet, but I will. I've got the fork position sensor hooked back up. Make sure you don't forget that, or you might need to see the dealer for buds, so make sure you remember to hook that up. Also hooked back up my sensor, and we're all good. Check the parking brake, everything's working. So we're all good. All right, time to go for a ride and check out the new Yokohama S-Drive. Anyway, hope this video was helpful, and if I've got anything more to say, I will add. Otherwise, see you next time. Oh baby, went for a ride. I think I'm gonna love this Yokohama S-Drive. I tried to break it loose, did not break loose. Well, I didn't try that hard. I was residential, but I think I'm gonna like it. Seriously. Anyway, job done. Sitting here admiring my tire and my feet. Anyway, just final comments. I think this is gonna be a great tire. I'll let people know as I get some miles on it.